Hög av serier med Anders Lundgren och Fredrik Kaplan.
All right then. Nice to meet you.
Yes, and the first thing I wanted to ask you was these days.
Well, let's see. There's a second series of Babs, the barbarian woman sword and sorcery story that did very well earlier this year. So that's coming out. That second series will start in January. There's a new book I'm particularly keen on called Partisan, and that's out in about a month's time, and that's with Steve Epting. Anyone who's familiar with Sarah, the Russian woman sniper story I did from about 5 years ago, this is not a sequel but a companion piece to that. It's about a woman who joins the resistance when the Germans invade Russia in 1941, and she finds herself in a partisan outfit as much to feed her children and keep them safe as it is for any ideological reason. So I'm particularly pleased about that. And more work for 2000 AD and battle action in the UK.
Yeah, beautiful. It's quite a lineup. Yeah, well, you touched directly upon one of to me, most important questions, because you've always written very strong female characters, from Kit to Tulip, Catherine O'Brien, Sarah, you mentioned now,
right,
and Amy Sun, and a host of others, of course, in your in all of your battle war comics. So my question more specifically is, did you have strong females in your life growing up that were inspirational?
I guess I must have done. My mother and my aunts were all pretty impressive characters. All fairly independent-minded. My wife is the same. I suppose it all helps. And the characters I encountered in fiction, of course, as well. You had, in 2000 AD, you had characters like Judge Anderson and Purity Brown, and in battle action, a very important character, Nina Petrova, in the Johnny Red strip. She was, like the rest of the characters in that strip, she was based roughly on people from real life. And she was based on one of the Night Witches, the woman who flew against the Nazis.
And you wrote a comic about the Night Witches as well. Yes.
I did. That was where I first learned about it. And of course, for someone of my age, I sometimes think that Sigourney Weaver casts a long shadow, because her as the sole survivor of that movie, when you think it's going to be one of the men.
It's just her and the cat.
It's just her and the cat, and seeing that at an impressionable age, I suppose you just find yourself thinking, well, why not?
Exactly. And also, I mean, this might just be that I gravitate towards that sort of material, but the flip side of that is, of course, the rape revenge type of story that you have. Recurring recurring theme that I've spotted, at least in your comics. Like the Slavers, for instance, is my favorite Punisher story.
Right.
And
well,
that
that's
sort of thing. And
very
violence towards women.
Well, that one's very specifically about human trafficking. When I first read about that subject, I knew of it and what it was, but I didn't really know the details. And when I read about it and did some research, I think it's probably the only time I've really wanted there to be a Punisher in real life.
I can see where you're coming from. Yes.
Not that would be a good idea, but there's. I remember that the article I initially read, at a certain point in the story, the social worker character is giving a lecture. And a lot of the examples in that lecture are taken directly from real life.
Yes. those are some real horror stories when you look into that.
Oh, ghastly beyond description, you know.
Yes, and then, this is more of a very comic booky question, but the social worker, she carried over from the Marvel Knights Punisher.
Yeah.
And how was the reasoning? Because you don't use that many other characters from the Marvel Knights.
No,
in the Max Punisher.
No, I never really felt that they were particularly related. But that's an example of me not worrying too much about continuity and so on, and just taking what I need and ignoring the rest.
Okay.
I honestly think that comics are largely hamstrung by that sort of continuity-heavy storytelling. I think it gets in the way. It gets in the way of good stories, good characterization. I don't write to satisfy people's neat and tidy minds.
No.
The best take I've ever heard on it. There's a novelist I used to like very much called Stephen Hunter, and he wrote kind of action thrillers set pretty much in the same world.
The sniper series.
And he said, he in an afterword he said something like, "I know these don't quite line up from book to book, but just trust me that it happened this way in this book and that way in that book." And I thought that's a smart way to think of it.
Yeah.
Don't get tied down.
No.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that the Slavers is very specifically about human trafficking, but then what fascinated me about the Ribbon Queen is that here it's the violence towards women takes on a mythological aspect, where because sadly enough it's been around since forever.
Yes, of course.
Since there were humans.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Well, but mythological aspects of the violence towards women was a recurring, ugly part of humanity.
Unquestionably, it occurred to me that if you were to turn that into a horror story, you would have a kind of blind, unfocused rage lashing out.
Yes.
Completely understandable, but almost directionless. Eventually personified in the form of a host, which is a familiar concept from horror stories, I think.
Of course. Yes.
But it would kind of feed on itself. It would eat itself. It was something that the host could only endure for so long before seeking oblivion, because of the monstrous quality of what we're talking about here, of the forces set loose.
Yes. Graphically cutting people into ribbons.
With the aid of the excellent Jason Burrows.
Yeah, Jason Burrows. Yeah, he really knocked it out of the park.
He always does.
Yes. Well, we talked about some of your themes, but going back, what were the first comics that really caught your fancy and made you fall in love with the
Well, that would be 2000 AD when I was 7.
Yeah.
Reading Judge Dredd, Dan Dare, Invasion, Harlem Heroes, but in particular Flesh. I remember being 7 years old and reading a strip in 2000 AD called Flesh, and it was the story of people from the 23rd century going back to the time of the dinosaurs to farm the dinosaurs for flesh, because for reasons best known to the strip, proper meat has run out in the 23rd century, and someone has the bright idea, well, the dinosaurs were going to go extinct anyway, why don't we go back and farm them? Not thinking for a second, well, wait a minute, could that be the reason they died out?
Yeah.
They go back and they start farming the great herbivores, the brontosaurs and stegosaurs and ceratopsians and so on. But of course the predators, the velociraptors and the allosaurs and the tyrannosaurs, they on some very basic level understand that this newcomer, these little pink apes and their machines, are stealing their food. And so they go to war with the 23rd century cowboys, So it's future man versus ancient dinosaur, and it was probably far too violent and bloody a strip for a 7-year-old to be reading, but it was really the most wonderful thing.
Yeah. I can imagine. Yeah, 2000 AD stuff was actually the only time I got pushback from my mother for reading comics.
Right.
There was a couple of particularly violent Judge Dredd strips.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't want this stuff in the house anymore. Please stop buying them. Yeah, well, how does a work day for you look like these days?
Start writing in the late morning or early afternoon, immediately after lunch, and finish up just after dinner.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it in very, very broad terms. Some days I'll do nothing at all. Some days I'll work all day. But at the end of the week, so long as it's done, it doesn't matter.
You got your deadlines, and as long as you meet them.
You know, I'm generally so far ahead of the deadlines, it doesn't matter. I try to be, because when an artist goes to work on one of my stories, ideally I want them to have every script.
Okay.
So Jason Burrows is working on the second series of Babs at the minute.
Yeah.
Now he's on issue 3, but before he started issue 1, I'd written all 6, because I don't want him to have to scramble to catch up if I write something in issue 6 while he's drawing issue 5.
Oh, yeah.
And he's not ready for it. I want him to be able to read all the scripts, know exactly what's coming, and design things in issue 1 that will still work in issue 6.
Of course.
I do hear of people delivering scripts, you know, a page or panels at a time, but I think that's dreadful. It's just so unfair on the artist. It doesn't give them any kind of a chance to prepare.
No. Yeah, because you have a couple of course, you've had a couple of recurring artists that you worked very closely with during your entire career. So
yes.
How much of a shorthand do you develop as time goes by?
It's very much a question of trust. I mean, my scripts look the same no matter who I work with. Getting to know the individuals. It's not so much a question of a shorthand with them, because that's across the board. It's far more a question of putting the right artist on the right script, on picking the guy who you know will be good for this one,
of course,
for that one, whatever.
Yeah.
You know.
And your war comics are very detailed and of course very brilliant. So how much research do you read, of course, war history?
I'm reading material like that all the time. Really, it was the British war comics I read as a kid that led me into an interest in military history, and then eventually full circle back to doing my own war comics. So given that I've been reading this stuff my whole life, generally, if I do any research for a specific story, it's really just like fine-tuning to get the little details. I'm aware of the kind of broad strokes, you know.
Because I started thinking about Svetlana Alexievich and reading Sarah. You know, she wrote...
Yes, Svetlana Alexievich.
Unwomanly Face of War, for
right,
instance.
and Secondhand Time, and Last Witnesses, and she wrote one about Russian servicemen in Afghanistan. Yes. I think that was the first one I read by her, and that was partly what inspired a Punisher story I did called Soviet. But she's an incredible and very, very important writer. I think if you want to understand where Russia is today, you can get a long way towards it by reading the work she was doing in the 80s and 90s and 2000s.
I remember when she got the Nobel Prize in Literature, and talked to some friends in Russia, and they weren't all that happy about it.
No, a lot of people weren't. Yeah,
she makes us look bad. Was basically what they said.
Well, that's a good journalist's job, I think. I mean, she used to piss off the Soviets, and now she pisses off Putin. I mean, I fear for her, frankly, but maybe they just figure at this point the damage is done.
Yeah, maybe no Novichok for Svetlana Alexievich, I hope not.
I hope not, yeah.
Yes, I very much love the Punisher and your Punisher Max version most of all. And did you receive any flack when back a couple of years back when there was some discussions about people in law enforcement and the army using his logo?
I never got into any trouble over that. I got asked, my opinion by a couple of people, but at that time I was sort of between Punisher projects, so my work was affected by it, but not directly. I see. Around about the time I wrote Soviet, which I think saw print in about 2018 or 2019 or something like that.
Yeah.
I also wrote Get Fury, which is the most recent Punisher to see print, and that was eventually drawn and it was finished, and that was when Marvel got cold feet. So it was sort of in limbo for a couple of years. Even though, if you think about it, it's not really a Punisher story.
Exactly.
There are a couple of sort of flash forward shots of him with the skull, But the story is set in 1971 or 72, whatever it is. But they were still antsy about it, and then at a certain point, I think they realized, well, we've bought this, we've paid for it. There's no point in trying to censor it because we'll just destroy it. Because a lot of the Marvel hierarchy do like the Max material. They like that they're able to put out books like that. And so eventually they just said, let's put it out. And of course they did, and there was no trouble at all. I think that whole thing over the skull is just one of those occasional storms that publishing has to weather. I mean, what are we talking about, really? We're talking about keeping the shareholders happy.
Yeah.
It's not as if removing the Punisher skull is going to change the economic circumstances that lead to police violence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because that's... I was very impressed by the Ribbon Queen, how you make that part of the story. Police violence and the Black Lives Matter riots that were...
It came out of that the summer of 2020.
Yeah, and when you started falling in love with comics, how was was it a long slog before you decided to start writing them yourself?
Not really. I mean, I stuck with comics through my teens because it was one of the most interesting and invigorating times. The medium in the mainstream was taking great leaps and bounds. Alan Moore was doing Watchmen. You had Dark Knight from Frank Miller. I was seeing the 2000 AD writers and artists make their way into American comics. You know what it was like at that stage. Miracle Man, V for Vendetta, Electra Assassin, Love and Rockets, Concrete, Hard Shaken was doing American Flag. And it just seemed like the most interesting time to get into the business, as this art form was suddenly growing up and taking massive risks and turning out all sorts of incredible new stories. And so I left school, I left high school at 18, and I began submitting material, and I got my first job on my 19th birthday. So the whole thing was kind of a roller coaster ride,
What a birthday present.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was like, I remember calling the publisher's office on my birthday, just thinking, well, nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? But this isn't going to work. It's going to take a lot longer than this. And the guy said, oh, yeah, we read that. We like it. We'd like to talk to you about it. And pretty soon, a couple of months later, my first story was in print.
And that was Troubled Souls.
That's right, yeah.
Crisis.
Yeah. Crisis itself was in crisis because the sales after the first issue had slipped quite badly and they needed to do a relaunch. and they didn't have time to commission something from an established writer and artist, so they took the best thing they found in the submissions pile, and that happened to be this thing by myself and John McRae, and they said, you know, we've no choice, we've got to take a chance on these guys, and it worked out.
Yeah, I'm sort of really happy that they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you have any more plans for Punisher comics that you can talk about?
Nothing specific at the moment. But if Marvel was to say to me, we'd like you to do more Punisher, either as a Max book or with the same level of creative freedom, I'd do it tomorrow. Yeah.
I'm very happy. And are there any... you have such a monumental body of work at this stage. It's inspiring.
Thank you. Thanks.
And but do you still have any dream projects to cross off the bucket list, so to speak?
You'll probably not be surprised to hear that they're all war comics. Keith Burns and I would like to have plans to do a series of graphic novels about British RAF fighter pilots in the Second World War.
Yeah.
So a series of graphic novels that follows our heroes from the Battle of Britain to Malta to the fighting over the Rhineland at the end of the war. So that's the big dream project, and that's going to be about 10 years work. So we ought to get started pretty soon, I think.
Yeah. Gotta kick it off.
Yeah.
And could you tell us a bit about Ninth Circle, the creator-owned horror imprint that you started?
Well, that was something that Joe Pruitt, the ex-publisher of Aftershock and Caliber and Dead Reckoning, got together. It's fairly typical for nowadays, of course, you know, generating IP for Hollywood, but it's a chance for me to write some sort of short, snappy, vicious little horror one-shots.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into those. Well, and you mentioned earlier during the stage interview that Dirty Harry is one of the characters you might want to write. But that's more of a dream, anything.
I mean, again, if someone said, you know, you can do this and we won't get in your way, I could probably come up with something fun. It would be a good laugh to write Harry.
Yeah.
You know, but I've written most of the stories in terms of established characters that I want to. I'm not that worried now if the bulk of my work remains creator-owned. I mean, that's just common sense anyway.
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
And how is it living in the US and more particularly in New York these days?
Well, I'm in New York about 4 months out of the year. The rest of the time is in the UK.
Yeah.
Just back from New York, actually from 6 weeks there, and it's, I mean, on one level, it's as great as it ever was.
Yeah.
You can walk around Manhattan and notice almost no difference. It's what seems to be looming in the background that's concerning. How far will this go? How far will they push it? How far can they push it? Will democracy collapse? Will America become a totalitarian state? These are the things at the back of your mind. What will happen next? Find out in the next exciting episode.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for
your
time, Mr. Ennis.